Most people will watch this video and scroll past it because what you're about to hear doesn't feel good. It doesn't sound like motivation. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't tell you that you're doing everything right. In fact, it might make you feel like something is wrong with you. And that's exactly why most people won't stay. They don't want to question themselves. They don't want to look deeper. They don't want to consider the possibility that the way they experience the world is not the only way to experience it. But if you're still here, there's already something different about you. Because instead of avoiding discomfort, you're willing to look at it. And that matters more than you think. Because what if the habits you've been trying to fix are not mistakes? What if they're signals? What if the reason you feel out of place sometimes is not because you don't fit in, but because you see things most people don't even notice? Because your mind doesn't just react, it analyzes, it connects, it questions, and that creates a completely different experience of reality. So before you dismiss this, pay attention, not casually, carefully. Because if even a few of these feel familiar, you're going to start recognizing patterns you've ignored your entire life. You talk to yourself, not in a chaotic way, in a structured way. You replay conversations, not once, multiple times, each time noticing something new, a different tone, a different meaning, a different possibility. You simulate situations that haven't happened yet. You imagine outcomes, you prepare responses, you build entire conversations in your head before they even exist in reality. And at some point, you've probably caught yourself doing this and thought, why am I like this? But what's actually happening is something most people never develop. You're thinking in layers, not just reacting to what happened, but exploring what could happen, what might happen, what should happen. Like you're not just inside the moment, you're analyzing the structure of the moment itself. And that gives you an advantage you probably don't even realize you have. Because when something finally happens in real life, you're not seeing it for the first time. You're recognizing it. You get bored faster than other people, not because you're impatient, because you've already processed what's happening. You can predict where the conversation is going. You can feel the pattern repeating, the same questions, the same responses, the same surface level exchange. And after a while, your mind starts pulling away, not physically, mentally. You're still there. You're nodding. You're listening. But internally, you've already moved on, and people misinterpret this. They think you're distracted. They think you don't care. But the reality is much simpler. Your brain just finished the task, and now it's looking for the next one. Something more complex, something unpredictable, something that requires actual thinking. Because once your mind gets used to depth, surface-level interaction starts to feel like repetition. You enjoy being alone, and not occasionally, consistently. You choose it, you need it, you protect it, because it's not just time by yourself. It's the only time your mind fully opens. No noise, no interruptions, no expectations, just space. And in that space, your thoughts expand. They connect in ways they don't during the day. Ideas become clearer. Problems become easier to understand. And sometimes, you realize things about yourself that you would never notice in a crowded environment. This is why solitude doesn't feel empty to you. It feels productive. It feels necessary. It feels like the only time you can actually hear your own thoughts. And the more you experience that clarity, the harder it becomes to constantly surround yourself with noise. You overthink everything. But here's what people don't understand. There's a difference between overthinking and deep thinking. Overthinking loops, deep thinking builds. And you often do both. You analyze situations in detail, you break them down, you examine every angle, you look for patterns, you look for meaning, you look for hidden variables that most people ignore. And yes, sometimes it goes too far. Sometimes your mind creates scenarios that will never happen. Sometimes it turns uncertainty into stress. But at its core, this is not weakness. This is your brain trying to understand complexity, trying to reduce uncertainty, trying to gain control over outcomes. The key difference is awareness. Once you realize what your mind is doing, you can guide it. Instead of being trapped inside it, you question everything, not out of rebellion, out of curiosity. You don't accept information at face value. You test it. You challenge it. You compare it with other perspectives. You look for contradictions. And when something doesn't make sense, you don't ignore it. You stay with it. You dig deeper. And this creates friction because most people are not used to being questioned. They prefer certainty, even if that certainty is wrong. But you prefer truth, even if it's uncomfortable. And that difference changes how you interact with the world. You notice patterns in people, sometimes instantly. You pick up on tone changes, energy shifts, subtle inconsistencies. You can feel when something is off, even if you can't immediately explain why. And over time, this turns into something powerful. You start predicting behavior, understanding motives, seeing through what people say to what they actually mean. But there's a downside. When you see patterns clearly, you also see repetition. You see the same behaviors, the same mistakes, the same cycles, and that can make interactions feel less genuine because nothing feels completely new. You feel different from most people, and this is not something you usually say out loud because it sounds wrong. It sounds like you're separating yourself, but internally, you've felt it for a long time. You can adapt, you can blend in, you can hold conversations, but there's always a small awareness that you're thinking in a slightly different way, processing things differently, reacting differently. And over time, you learn to adjust, to simplify your thoughts, to filter what you say, to match the level of the conversation, not because you want to, but because it makes things easier. And that creates a strange feeling where you're present but not fully expressed. You often feel mentally exhausted, even when you haven't done anything physical, because thinking at this level takes energy, constant analysis, constant awareness, constant processing. It doesn't stop. And most people don't realize how draining that can be. Because from the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But internally, your mind is running continuously. And that's why sometimes you just need to disconnect. Not from people, but from thinking itself. You replay the past, not because you're stuck, but because you're extracting information. You revisit moments, not emotionally, analytically. You look at what happened, what could have been different, what you can learn from it. And every time you do this, you refine your understanding of people, of situations, of yourself. And over time, this creates a more accurate internal model of reality, which influences every decision you make going forward. You have a strong awareness that most people are distracted, constantly, not deeply thinking, not analyzing, not questioning, just moving from one thing to another. And this doesn't make you feel superior. It makes you feel separate because you're experiencing something they're not even aware of, and that gap is difficult to explain. There's one more thing. You often feel like you're living in your own head more than in the moment itself. Even when something is happening in real time, part of your attention is somewhere else. Observing, analyzing, interpreting. It's like you're experiencing life and watching yourself experience it at the same time. And this creates a strange effect, where moments don't just pass. They get processed, broken down, stored differently. That's why certain experiences stay with you longer, why conversations replay in your mind, why small details feel significant. Because your brain doesn't just register reality, it studies it. And while this can make life feel more intense, more complex, sometimes even overwhelming, it also means you extract more meaning from the same experience than most people ever will. And that changes how you grow, how you decide, how you understand the world. So if you've ever felt like you're too much in your head, that's not a flaw. That's how your brain processes reality. And once you understand that, you stop fighting it. You start using it. Here's the truth that almost no one explains. Intelligence is not always visible. It doesn't always look confident, or structured, or impressive. Sometimes it looks like overthinking, like silence, like questioning too much, like feeling out of place. And because of that, people try to suppress it. They try to become simpler, less aware, just to fit in. But the moment you understand what's actually happening, you stop doing that. You stop shrinking your thinking. You stop filtering yourself unnecessarily. You stop treating your depth like it's a problem. And that's where everything changes, because awareness changes how you see yourself. And how you see yourself changes every decision you make. So now be honest. Which part of this felt the most real? Not the most impressive, the most accurate? Write it in the comments. And if this made you see your mind differently, subscribe. Because once you understand your mind, you don't just think differently, you live differently.